What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Um, so I just wanted to do like a little bit of a recap for the Las Vegas Challenge, get my thoughts on the performance, what happened, and see if we can find some takeaways for um, the next big tournament. So let's start with the model first. Um, so overall, my model hit about 56.34% of the time, so just over a coin flip. Um, the hit plus push rate, so basically the stuff that hit and then also would have pushed, was about 70%, right? So 7 out of 10 times we were either hitting or pushing, and then obviously we missed about 30% of the time. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the performance of the model. Seemed to hold up well. There were some rounds where you could really tell what Prizepicks was pushing lines under or over, and they were really trying to adjust uh, their model. So overall, happy with the model. On the recommended picks, we went 7, 3, and 3. So pretty good rate. And the final day, we went 3-0. So if you tailed, hopefully you made some money there. Um, the next thing I wanted to do was go through a quick power ranking because I think this will help us. Let me move this over here. I think this will help us going into the next tournament, knowing where certain players stand. So I'm kind of going to go through this list. Um, I just kind of aggregated from different sources, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on how they perform. The yellow will mean the jury's kind of out. Green will mean they performed well and pretty stable, and then in red means they were pretty inconsistent. So Paul Macbeth, he played slightly below his rating overall. His event rating was about 1039. He's a 1050 rated player, so he didn't play his best. He's 32, so I don't think age regression's there yet. But you definitely would have expected a better performance from Paul. So I put him as yellow, as someone who the first tournament of the year didn't play as well as they could. So moving forward. Um, Obviously I wouldn't bet against him much, but I'll keep that in the back of my mind when, sometimes his line comes in super, super low. Next, Heimberg, Green, very consistent. I mean, he consistently played well, very impressive. Obviously, he won. He shot a 1058 event, so played well above his rating. He's a bomber. You would expect him to play well in this course, and he did. So whenever you expect someone to do well and they do, that's also a good sign for their consistency. So liking Heimberg going forward. Gannon Burr, the kid had a tough round. He had a tough event. I mean, he had a 10-12 rated event. All these are according to PDGA Live. You can clearly tell some of the off the field stuff's affecting his game. He almost won last year in the same event. And you would expect kid 17, like he would continue to progress. And he will progress. He will progress just from first sight, first tournament. You can definitely tell, there's been a little bit of regression, whether that's because of the off the field stuff. So he's red because I'll label him now as a volatile pick. So moving forward, I kind of want to be wary of Burr until he can kind of prove, he's not going to shoot a 1,000 rated round and then 1050 the next one. So a little bit of a red there. Next is Lazat. He averaged like 1,000 event because he had a pretty bad last couple rounds. There's clearly going to be some growing pains. The first round, he played super well. Everyone was like, oh, he's having no trouble adjusting to his discs. But, logic would say it's obviously going to take time. He's played his whole career with Discmania, and, MVP tournament situations always bring out a different gear. So Lazar, I'm going to label him as volatile for the time being. He's a bomber. He didn't perform it. He's one of the guys known for his distance. This is a course that favors distance, and he just didn't perform that well. So I will be wary of lower Simon lines for the future, especially in open courses. Next one we have is Matty O. So I didn't really play his prop too much, but he was pretty consistent. That's why I label him as green. So Matty O had a 1042 event, slightly above his rating. He's not really known for being a huge distance guy. He obviously has it, but that's all you can really hope for when you're betting is people who are consistently good or bad. So you can take the over or the under. So yeah, pretty stable play. Eagle, I put him in yellow, kind of in an inconsistent state. Um, he did have a 1039-ish event, so slightly below his rating. But you can clearly tell he's trending down a little bit, right? Like he used to be one of the 1050 boys. Um, and he still has that potential as a player, but you can tell he's clearly handicapped by not having his forehand at full capacity. He's historically played well at the Las Vegas Challenge, won it a couple times. So Eagle is someone keep an eye on, trending down in my view. I would definitely hit some overs if the lines come out at his rating for the next tournament. So the next person I have here is Kyle Klein. He was he had a pretty good performance. It was nice to see from Klein. Um, he shot about 1041 event, very consistent, played a little bit above his rating. He's also one of the Crush boys, right? So this course lined up well for him. He did kind of what you expected him to do. I would say he's trending up, and he overall played pretty stable. In yellow, next I have Isaac Robinson, and he would be a red, but I think with Isaac Robinson going into the year, he's really known more for his woods play. He won a couple tournaments last year for in the woods. So he was never really known for this huge distance open field guy, and he obviously didn't play well. He didn't make the cut in the final round. So only for that is because I didn't really expect him to play well. That's the only reason why he's a yellow and not a red. I would have thought, though, there would have been some progression to his game coming off a strong season last year. But clearly, to me, there's still some work to be done with his open course play. So that's just something I'm going to keep in mind in the future with Isaac. Next one is Joel Freeman. I'm going to put him as volatile, red, inconsistent. He's similar to Isaac, but he performed in the 1030s. I feel like Freeman's more. Sorry, I had the wrong person there. He averaged about 1020, right? So way below his rating. He just played overall inconsistent, and he's known as a bomber, right? Freeman's a guy from Colorado who can really launch the disc and just didn't play well. Next, I have on my list is Corey Ellis with a green. This is someone whose line over the weekend stayed pretty high, and we hit the unders on him a couple times. So we'll definitely be on the lookout for that in the future. As Ellis is someone who clearly has improved their game. He's similar to Robinson in the way where he was a wood specialist. Previous years that's where he played the best. And now on an open course, you can see he's clearly progressed. Put a lot of couple good rounds together, and he's already one of the best putters in the world. So he's someone I keep my eye on to continue to have a good season, maybe continue to play rounds above his rating. So yeah, I think he's good. Next is James Conrad. I'll give him a yellow because he started slow but finished strong. He finished about 1031. He played just kind of about his rating, about average for him, which is kind of what you would expect, which is why I gave him a yellow. Not a huge arm, but clearly a shot shaper, wood specialist as well, James Conrad, but still had some pretty good performances. So relatively stable, but didn't outperform his ranking or his rating. And next we have Kevin Jones. So he's also on the green, clearly trending up. Almost won this event. I will say a couple things we did learn from Jones. He had a 1042 event, so he played well, but very conservative in the final round. So I think that's something to take note of moving forward if he's in contention. He's going to be a little tentative and timid. Um, and he did have a couple stroke lead, so even more so like a reason to play conservative. Um, but that's definitely something I'll take away from him. Um, and also, I think he's historically kind of blown some leads in the final round as well. And almost on that same note, Anthony Barella with the yellow. Um, so he gets a yellow here because of how inconsistent he was, right? So dude obviously has a ton of potential. Um, Played really well the first 2 rounds, really well. And the volatility really sucks when you're betting. So, um, he's someone who's also been in lead cards recently and just hasn't found a way to play well, put a good round together in the final round. So that's something I also want to take away until proven otherwise. Drew Gibson. Well, Chris Clemens, I'm not going to touch on him. He didn't make the cut, so obviously trending down. But he didn't even have a prop. But Gibson, Green, stable, and I say this because he won the event last year. You would expect him to play well. He had one off round, but 3 really good rounds he put together. 1050 event, so above his average, and he kind of expected he performed like he would expect it to. So overall, Drew Gibson, solid, at least from the open courses, he's going to show up. Sexton, I have him as a yellow because he's winner of this course before. Granted, it was like 5 years ago, but still someone who's played historically well in the past. I think there's a little bit of age regression for Sexton. He's getting older. I think he's like 37, and that clearly showed up. He had a 10-12 event rating, so I think he's trending down. I put him as yellow only because he's definitely more of a shot shaper with obviously the great sidearm. So I'm not gonna hold that against him, but in terms of an open course, I'll definitely note that the distance isn't there like it used to be. So next, Ezra. Ezra played pretty well. He played pretty well. He ended up coming, I think, all the way climbing up to second or third. And he's green because you would expect him to. He's also one of those guys who has a top 5-6 arm, huge bomber. Ended up putting a couple rounds together, so he kind of played within the expectation. So I'll label him as green for now. Kind of did what he was supposed to. And then Brody Smith, I'll give him a yellow only because he had a 10-15 rated event, slightly below his average. It seems like he kind of has a cap of how good he can be. So if these lines come in a little low, definitely, look to bet the over there. I think he was just consistently okay. He put a lot of okay rounds together. And if he can stay like that, it's not necessarily a bad thing for betting, but the jury's still out on him. So that kind of wraps up my power ranking and this weekend. We'll be back. I think it's March 10th at Waco. I'll be refreshing the model when it gets closer when the picks drop. So just make sure you guys are following me on Twitter. That's where I post my plays there too. And just let me know your thoughts overall on how you think the tournament went and what you guys learned. So appreciate the time, guys.